I still don't know when it started. Maybe the first time she laughed, or the way she said my name like it already meant something. But I remember the moment it became impossible to ignore. Her hand brushed mine, by accident or maybe not, and I forgot what we were even talking about. She was standing by the window, half lit by the late afternoon sun. The kind of light that catches in hair and turns it gold at the edges. Her blouse sleeves were rolled just enough to show a thin bracelet, the kind that jingles quietly when she moves. She wasn't trying to be noticed, she just was. I'd come over to help her with something small, something ordinary. A new shelf, I think. The kind of thing that doesn't take long, but makes you linger anyway. Every word between us carried that strange pause, the kind where both people know what's not being said. You always overthink these things, she said softly, watching me adjust the screws. Maybe, I said. Maybe I just don't want to mess it up. She smiled, the quiet kind that isn't for show. It's just wood and metal, not life or death. But she stepped closer anyway, close enough that I could smell her perfume. Faint, warm, something floral that faded too fast. Her hand came over mine, guiding it toward the right spot. I should have moved, but I didn't. I couldn't. There, she said. Her voice was calm, but her fingers lingered just a little too long before pulling away. Silence filled the space after that. Not awkward, just full. She turned back toward the counter, pretending to check her phone, pretending she hadn't noticed how long I'd been watching her. I tried to say something casual. You always know how to fix things. Her laugh was quiet. Not everything. That one stayed in the air longer than it should have. The kind of line that sounded like a joke, but wasn't. I remember tracing the grain of the wooden shelf with my thumb, just to keep my hands busy. The clock ticked. Somewhere outside, a car door slammed. Inside, everything felt still except for the small space between us, alive, humming, waiting. She turned toward me again, slower this time. You're quiet tonight. I shrugged. Just thinking. About what? I should have lied, but I didn't. You. The silence that followed felt heavier than any sound could have been. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came. Her eyes found mine, steady, unreadable. Then, for just a second, something shifted. She reached for the shelf again, but her fingers brushed my wrist instead. The lightest touch, maybe an accident, maybe not. That's when I realized how close we were. I could feel the warmth of her body, the faint movement of her breath. Every instinct said to step back. None of them won. I shouldn't. She started, then stopped. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She turned away quickly, answering it without looking at me. Hey. Yeah. I'm still here, she said, her voice suddenly composed, distant. While she spoke, I caught my reflection in the window, standing there like someone waiting for a decision that wasn't his to make. When she hung up, she didn't look back right away. Then, finally, you should probably go before it gets dark. I nodded, but neither of us moved. Her hand brushed the doorknob. Mine brushed hers. And just like that same quiet spark again, the kind you can't name, only feel. The door opened. The cool air rushed in. But she didn't step aside. Not yet. I told myself I wouldn't go back. That night should have been enough to make things clear. She'd drawn a line, and I was supposed to respect it. But a week later there I was again, standing on her porch, holding a box of coffee filters I'd said she'd run out of. She opened the door before I even knocked. You didn't have to, she said, but her tone wasn't firm. It was softer, like she'd been expecting me. Inside, the same light poured across the living room, warm, muted, too intimate for two people pretending to be casual. She was barefoot this time, her hair tied loosely, a mug half full on the counter. Something about the way she moved, careful, deliberate, made me think she was used to silence. Maybe even liked it. We sat across from each other, and she asked about my classes. I asked about her work. It all sounded normal until it didn't. Do you ever get tired of being around people who don't really see you? She asked suddenly. I hesitated. All the time. She nodded, eyes on her coffee. You're lucky, though. You still think it changes. Her words caught something in me. I wanted to ask what she meant, but the way she said it, distant but fragile, told me enough. There'd been someone before, probably someone who didn't stay. Maybe a husband, maybe not. There was a quiet loneliness in her that didn't ask for pity, only understanding. I wanted to tell her that I did see her, that I couldn't stop. But that sounded dangerous, too honest for the room we were in. Instead, I said, You don't let people close easily, do you? Her eyes flicked to mine. That's not true. Then why do you always pull back? She smiled faintly, but her hand tightened around the mug. Because some things don't end well. The words hung there, heavy and familiar. I thought of the difference between her 40-something and my 20-something, how the world would see it, how she probably already did. I wanted to tell her I didn't care, that I wasn't looking for a story that made sense to anyone else. But she looked so composed, so unreachable, that I stayed quiet. Her phone buzzed again. She ignored it this time. Then she leaned forward, her elbow resting on the table, her face closer than before. The scent of coffee and that same faint perfume blurred together. You're staring, she said softly. Sorry, I said, though I wasn't. Her voice dropped lower. Don't be. Her hand moved, just slightly, until her fingers brushed mine. Not a full touch, just a hint, a whisper of one. The space between our hands felt like the whole world had narrowed into that single, dangerous inch. Neither of us moved for a long moment. The air thickened, breaths slowed. Her eyes flicked to my mouth, then away. She stood, clearing her throat as if to break the spell. I should get back to work, she said, though it was clear she wouldn't. I stood too, unsure what to do with the ache of everything unsaid. She walked me to the door, her hand resting briefly on my shoulder as she passed. That small warmth stayed long after she let go. When the door closed behind me, I realized I hadn't imagined it, the way she hesitated before saying goodbye. It wasn't distance anymore. It was a question neither of us had the courage to ask. I hadn't planned to see her that evening. It just happened, like all the things I wasn't supposed to want, but did anyway. She texted asterisk, Can you help me with the lamp? It keeps flickering. Asterisk, it was a small thing, another excuse, but the moment I stepped into her apartment, I could tell either of us cared about the lamp. She stood by the kitchen counter, phone in hand, hair still damp from a shower. The scent of her shampoo drifted faintly through the air, clean and distracting. She smiled, but there was a flicker of hesitation behind it, the kind that hides in the corner of a decision you haven't made yet. Thanks for coming, she said, her voice lower than usual. Always, I answered before thinking. Her laugh was short, caught between amusement and something else. You shouldn't say things like that. I pretended not to hear the warning. The lamp was in the corner, unplugged, harmless. Still, I fiddled with the cord as if it required focus. She leaned over beside me, her shoulder brushing mine lightly. That one small touch was enough to pull the air tighter. We didn't speak for a while. The quiet pressed in, close, thick with everything neither of us could name. Then, a knock on the door. She froze. It's probably just my neighbor, she whispered, but her tone carried a tremor. She glanced toward the door, then back to me. Don't move. She opened it slightly, enough for a man's voice to filter through. Someone from work, dropping off a file she'd left behind. I couldn't see him, but I heard his tone, friendly, casual, too familiar. She laughed softly, the polite kind of laugh people use when they're pretending nothing's wrong. I stayed in the shadows by the lamp, heart hammering like I'd done something wrong. When the door finally closed, she leaned against it, eyes closed for a moment, exhaling hard. You okay? I asked. She nodded. You shouldn't be here. But she didn't ask me to leave. I stood, slowly crossing the room until we were face to face. Her hands were still trembling, maybe from nerves, maybe from something else. I wanted to reach for her, to say something that made it simple, but nothing about this was simple. You were nervous, I said quietly. Of course I was. She looked up at me. People talk. They always do. There it was, the truth between us, small and brutal. The world would never see this as anything but wrong. But the way she was looking at me now, it felt like something honest, something real. She stepped closer, almost without realizing it. I could feel her breath now, warm against my jaw. You make it hard to think straight, she whispered. Her hand rose, brushing a speck of dust from my shirt, but it stayed there, her fingers resting lightly against my chest. My pulse betrayed me, loud in the quiet room. For a moment, I thought she'd close the distance. But she didn't. Instead, she drew in a shaky breath and looked away. You should go, she said, her voice barely holding steady. I know, I said, but neither of us moved. The light flickered again, one soft flash before settling steady. Her hand dropped from my chest, grazing my arm on the way down, a touch that lingered even after it was gone. When I finally turned to leave, she said my name, once, low, like a confession. I looked back. Her lips parted. Then silence, thick, unbroken, full of everything that almost happened. The next time I saw her, it wasn't planned, again. It was late, raining hard, the kind of night that makes the whole world sound smaller. She'd forgotten her umbrella at the cafe we both went to, and I'd found it sitting on the counter after she left. It was reason enough to knock on her door. She opened it wearing a thin sweater, sleeves pushed up, hair slightly damp. The smell of rain drifted in behind me as she said, You didn't have to bring it. I know, I said. But you would have walked home without it. She took the umbrella but didn't move aside. For a second, I thought she'd closed the door. Instead, she stepped back. You're soaked. Come in. The lights were low, soft. The room hummed with the sound of the storm outside, a steady percussion that made everything feel closer. She handed me a towel and watched me dry my hair, her eyes lingering a moment too long. You always show up when you shouldn't, she murmured. Then tell me to stop. She looked at me for a long second. You wouldn't. Something broke in her tone, a quiet tremor, almost pleading. I stepped closer, just enough for her to feel it. Why do you keep letting me in, then? Her breath caught. She didn't answer, but her hand came up, brushing rain from my collar. Her fingertips hesitated there, tracing the line of my jaw before she realized what she was doing and pulled back. She turned away, pacing toward the window. You don't understand what this would cost me. I don't care what anyone thinks. But I do, she said, voice sharp but trembling. You'll move on. You'll forget. And I'll still be here, trying to pretend this never happened. Her words should have stopped me. Instead, I crossed the distance between us before she could say another. My hand found hers, cool from the rain. She didn't pull away. Her shoulders were tense, but she didn't move, not when I turned her gently to face me, not when I brushed a strand of wet hair from her cheek. Her eyes lifted to mine, wide and uncertain. Say something, I whispered. She shook her head. You're too young to mean it. Try me. The silence after that wasn't peaceful. It pulsed, heartbeat for heartbeat. I could feel her trembling against me, the air between us charged, fragile. Her fingers clutched the edge of my sleeve, holding on like she hated herself for it. You make everything harder, she said, her voice breaking on the last word. Maybe it's supposed to be hard, I said. Maybe that's how we know it's real. Her breath came faster. Her forehead rested lightly against my chest, not surrender, just exhaustion from resisting. I closed my eyes, my hand rising instinctively to her back, feeling the warmth through the thin fabric of her sweater. Then she looked up, too close, too vulnerable. Her lips parted slightly. The thunder outside rolled deep and low, a sound that made everything else disappear. For one suspended second, there was nothing else, no rain, no fear, no world waiting outside that door. Then a knock. We both froze. Her eyes widened, hands still pressed against me. The sound came again, firmer this time. She exhaled shakily. Don't say anything, she whispered, stepping back though her fingers lingered on mine until the very last moment. The knock echoed again, louder. And just like that, the world rushed back in, all noise, all consequence. But her gaze didn't leave me. Not even when she whispered, almost too quietly to hear, "This can't keep happening." The next day, everything felt wrong before I even saw her. Messages unanswered. Attention I couldn't name. Then, sometime near dusk, she called, her voice tight, controlled. "Can you come over? Just for a minute." When I arrived, she was pacing by the window, phone still in her hand, the light behind her faint and cold. "Someone knows," she said quietly, not looking at me. My heart stuttered. "Knows what?" She turned then, meeting my eyes. "About us." There wasn't really an us, not yet, but the way she said it made it real, made it dangerous. She walked toward me, fingers trembling slightly. "He saw you leave that night," she said. "The one who dropped off the file. He asked me today if there was something going on." I took a step closer. "What did you say?" "That there wasn't." She laughed once, a dry, broken sound. "But I don't think he believed me." The silence that followed was suffocating. Outside, the evening was still, heavy with the threat of rain again. Inside, she stood with her arms crossed, as if holding herself together. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," she whispered. "I know," I said, even though a part of me wanted to ask if that was true. Her eyes lifted to mine, and something cracked. "You make me feel stupid," she said, voice low and shaking. "Like I'm 16 again. Like I don't know better." I didn't move, didn't speak. I just let her words hit. Then she stepped forward, closing the space between us until I could see the reflection of myself in her pupils. "Do you even understand what you've done to me?" she asked, her voice barely a breath. I swallowed hard. "Maybe the same thing you've done to me." That was when it happened. Her hand rose, almost in defiance, brushing the back of her fingers against my cheek. It wasn't tender. It was desperate. I felt her breath catch, the faint tremor in her touch. She was shaking her head, but she didn't pull away. "You should hate me for this," she whispered. "I don't." Her eyes closed, a quiet sound slipping from her throat, something between a sigh and surrender. She pressed her forehead against mine, and for a second, all the fear, the guilt, the wrongness dissolved into pure, fragile stillness. Then her phone buzzed again, a new message flashing on the screen behind her. She glanced over my shoulder, and I saw her expression change. "It's him," she said, her voice flat now. "He's asking if you're here." I stepped back, pulse hammering. She didn't move to answer, just stared at the message, then at me. "You need to go," she said quietly. "No, you have to." I reached for her wrist, just enough to stop her turning away. "Tell me you don't want this, and I'll walk out right now." She didn't. Her mouth opened, but no words came. The only sound was the faint hum of the phone on the counter, still buzzing between us like a heartbeat we couldn't ignore. Finally, she whispered, "I can't keep lying." And still, she didn't let go of my hand. When I came back, it wasn't to fix things, it was because I couldn't stand the silence. She'd stopped answering entirely, and that absence felt louder than any fight could have been. So I showed up, again, in the quiet between decisions. She opened the door slowly, eyes red from crying. No words, no pretense. Just a soft, exhausted, "You shouldn't be here." "I know," I said. "But you didn't tell me not to come." For a moment, we just stood there, rain tapping faintly against the glass behind her. The house smelled like candles that had burned too long, wax and something faintly floral. She turned away first, walking toward the living room. "You shouldn't make this harder than it already is," she said. "I'm not the one pretending it doesn't matter." She spun around, something sharp in her expression. "It does matter. That's the problem." The anger cracked her voice, but underneath it was fear, the kind that comes from wanting something you shouldn't. I stepped forward before I could stop myself. "Then tell me to go, and I will." She didn't. She just stared at me, chest rising and falling too fast. When I reached her, we were inches apart, so close I could see every fleck of light in her eyes. I can't lose everything for a feeling, she whispered. It's not just a feeling. Her hand came up, pressing flat against my chest. Then what is it? It's the only thing that's ever felt real. For a moment, neither of us breathed. Then her hand moved, not away, but up, tracing the collar of my shirt, her fingers trembling as if they were learning me for the first time. I could feel her pulse through them. You don't know what you're asking, she said. Then show me. Her breath caught. Her face tilted upward, her lips parting slightly, close enough that I could feel the warmth of each word. You shouldn't make promises you'll break. I'm not promising anything. I'm choosing. The world seemed to narrow around us, heartbeat, breath, the faint thunder outside. Her forehead rested against mine, a small surrender that said everything words couldn't. Her whisper trembled between us. You make me forget who I'm supposed to be. Maybe that's not a bad thing. She gave a soft, broken laugh, half relief, half disbelief. Then, slowly, she leaned closer. I could feel the tremor in her shoulders, the unsteady rhythm of her breath. Our noses brushed. My hand found the small of her back. The air between us vanished. Then, a single sound broke through it. A message tone. The same one as before. She froze. The light from her phone blinked across the room, one sharp pulse that reminded us both of what waited outside this moment. Her eyes met mine again, and for the first time, they weren't uncertain. They were clear, full of everything we'd been avoiding. This ends one way or another, she whispered. Then let's stop pretending, I said. And she didn't look away. The rain had finally stopped by morning, but the world still felt washed raw, quiet, fragile. I didn't know if I should go back. After the last look she gave me, after everything that almost happened and didn't, it felt like the story should have ended there. But endings aren't always clean. Sometimes they ask for one more word. One more look. When she opened the door this time, there was no hesitation, just a small, tired smile that reached her eyes for the first time in days. You came, she said. Yeah. I guess I didn't know how not to. Her laugh was small, real. You never did. We didn't rush. The silence between us wasn't heavy anymore. It was full of everything we didn't have to say. She motioned me in, and I followed, careful, like the air itself might break if I moved too fast. The living room looked the same. The same mug on the counter, the same faint scent of vanilla and rain. She sat down on the couch and pulled her knees up, leaving space beside her. I took it, close enough that our shoulders brushed. I keep thinking about that night, she said softly. So do I. She glanced at me, eyes searching. Do you regret it? I shook my head. Do you? Her hand hesitated, then reached for mine, just a light touch at first, fingers brushing, testing. I thought I would, she whispered. But I don't. I can't. We stayed like that, her thumb tracing circles against my skin, our breaths slowly finding the same rhythm. The storm outside was gone, but its echoes still hummed somewhere inside us. You know this can't be easy, she said. I don't want easy, I replied. I just want honest. That made her smile again, small, quiet, but full of something new. You and your impossible words. I leaned closer, forehead against hers. Then say something possible. Her breath trembled against my cheek. Stay. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a confession or a promise. Just a word that felt like relief. So I did. I stayed. We didn't talk for a long time, didn't need to. Her head rested on my shoulder, my hand tracing slow lines over hers, our breaths sinking to the rhythm of the rain returning, gentle this time. There were still questions, still fears waiting outside that door. But for now, it was enough. The warmth, the closeness, the unspoken truth between us. When she finally whispered, "This feels right," I believed her. And for the first time, neither of us looked away. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?